date is July 26, 2019. I am Ethan Ray, and I'm interviewing Kerry Heime at the Newkirk Public Library, Newkirk, Oklahoma. I am a member of the Newkirk 4-H Go-Getters, and this is for the Oklahoma Military Hall of Fame project. What motivated you to join the military?
Well, I went on the wheat harvest in '58 after I got out of high school. Ended up in Canada. Me and another fellow hitchhiked back, and he was going to go to college, and so I went over to Tonkawa, and I was standing in line and get enrolled, and I was kind of tired of school anyway, and I said, "The heck with this." And so I left, and then eventually I went down to Ena's and at the federal building down there, and all the recruiting offices were downstairs in the basement, as I remember. And I just went down there to talk, and everybody was gone to lunch except the Navy guy. So I ended up in the Navy. And it's all history from there.
Tell me a little about your time in basic training.
Well, it was in San Diego at the boot camp there, Naval Boot Camp in San Diego. And I don't know, pretty uneventful. A zillion guys, all doing their thing, and there was, in our company there was, 30 guys, maybe 40, I don't remember. And the only event I can remember is at night we had to stand watches down on the boat docks, and there was a guy in the barracks watch, and he had to wake up, the guys that went out to go do the watch, stand the watch. And one night this guy forgot to wake me up, and until the watch was just about over. So I think it was just a 2-hour watch. But anyway, I got up and got dressed, got my rifle, and went over to where I was supposed to check in, and out in the middle of the grinder out there. And there was an old first-class petty officer in there, and I think he just came in off the beach. You could smell, a little bit of beer or something there, and I'm talking to him. And, I explained to him why I was late, and he said, "You see that panel wagon out there?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "You go stand in front of it, and when I start it, you better run." And I said, "Okay." And so I ran around the building 2 times, trying to get ahead of him, and then I said, "Well, I don't think he'll run over me." So anyway, I headed off to where I was supposed to stand the watch, and he pulled up beside of me and took me on down there. And then the fellow that I relieved, he was in our company, and he told him, he says, "I'll bet he's never late for watch again." And he was right. So that's the only event I can really remember out of boot camp that, made an impression on me. Everything else was, I did just what everybody else was doing, Worst thing about it, I believe, boot camp was washing your clothes outside on a rub board like thing and hanging them up every night on clothesline. It had to be 2 inches apart, or 2 fingers apart, let's put it that way. And if they weren't, your company commander would tear it all down and you'd start over. So you had to get that right. That's probably the worst thing.
What was your primary job after training?
Well, I went to school in Jacksonville, Florida. And I thought I got out of school, but, the Navy turned right around and sent me to school. Well, actually, I went to Norman for a little while. It was P school or something they called it there. It was math and science. And it was there for, 6 weeks or something. And then on to Jacksonville, Florida, aircraft electrician school. And I completed that down there, and then you get, after you complete it, you get assigned to a squadron somewhere, and mine was in California. They sent me to Moffett Field and VF 124 in Moffett Field. That's right south of San Francisco a ways. Little town outside the base is Mountain View, and that's where Silicon Valley is right there now. It wasn't then, but you know, you could buy a house there for $20,000 back then. and that's what I worked at all the 4 years that I was in.
Were you deployed? If so, where and for what?
Well, we would go aboard a ship. I went aboard the Oriskany and the Hancock for short periods of time because the squadron I was in was a training squadron for pilots, and they had to learn to fly on and off the ship, and so then we'd go aboard ship for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and the pilots would train on that. But I got sent on I got transferred eventually to VF 91, which was a seagoing outfit, and went aboard the Ranger, USS Ranger, and went on a cruise overseas to the Far East, Japan and Okinawa and Hong Kong, places like that.
What was the most demanding part about your deployment?
Well, being at sea for weeks at a time. You know, Navy guys always like to tie the ship up and go go ashore. Kind of what you look forward to. And probably the most demanding when you were out to sea was night flying and long hours working. But other than that, it wasn't too bad.
Where did you serve the majority of your time in service?
California, most of the time in California, except when I was going to school. Moffett Field there, south of San Francisco, and then down at, well, Alameda some, up at the Bay Area there, and Miramar down by San Diego.
What rank are you most proud to have earned, and why?
Well, I made the second class, E5, in kind of the minimum time. It turns out that when you go in, you have to put in a certain amount of time before you can advance. And the Navy then, I don't know what they do now, but back then they gave a test for advancement twice a year. And so it just so happened that I had just the right amount of time in to take the test, both for third class and then for second class. And so I made the second class AE2 in minimum time, and that worked good for me.
Which medals or citations are you most honored to have received, and why?
Well, the only medal I got was good conduct, and I guess why is because I don't know, you didn't have to be perfect to get it, I guess.
Tell me about some of the special people you met.
Well, you know, the guys you work with in the shop, in the electric shop, and different places, they were all just, most of them were all young, 18, 19-year-old guys, and first time they'd been away from home, I guess, for a long periods, and so we were all kind of growing up and kind of had common goals, and you had good shop supervision and division officers and that sort of thing. They were all good people, and they treated people good, and even you know, mess up once in a while, and they understood that, I believe, that you know, that we were all young and in a learning process. I just you know, I look back over the years, and everybody that I knew, they were all good, you know, and they were all you know, kind of working together to get the job done.
What was the best and worst military food you were served, and why?
Oh. I don't remember any bad food. I remember chipped beef on toast or whatever. It had another name, and sauerbraten, which is some kind of a roast beef with something in it. I don't know what it was, but I haven't ever had any since then. And I really like that.
Tell me a funny story you experienced that could only happen in the military.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It was kind of funny. It was kind of stupid or whatever. When I was in school in Jacksonville, Florida, there, the commissary burned down, and so there was this big mound of rubble there, and food and cigarettes and you name it. It was all there in this big pile after the fire, and we had to stand watches on it overnight, and keep people from stealing the garbage, I guess, or whatever. And I always thought that was kind of stupid, but another thing that was funny, I can tell you, that you probably never heard of, is one time in Fallon, Nevada, we were up there and doing some gunnery practice. And on the way back, they flew us back to Alameda, I believe it was, in C-47s. And it had seats along the sides, those strap seats you sat in along the sides, and we were all in there, and in the middle of the fuselage in front of us there was tumbleweeds. We had a load of tumbleweeds, and we were told that the CO's wife wanted to spray paint them for Christmas decorations. so I might be one of the few people that ever flew with a load of tumbleweeds.
How did your military experience affect your life today?
Well, I think it gives you a better prospect on the world and the needs of the country and the people that are in the military. That you know that you have to. You don't never plan on anything bad happening to you, but it certainly could. You know, I saw people hurt and lose their lives when I was aboard ship. It's just accidents can happen, and they do happen. And I think you look back on that, and you appreciate a lot more of the things you have in the country we live in.
Is there any other stories you would like to share?
Well, there's a lot of stories, but most of them are not printable. So I guess that's it.
Thank you for your time and for your service.
Okay.